Today, we're going to get back into our deep dive series. We're going to take a look at Kerry Carpenter, one of the biggest storylines of 2023, and then Brendan White, all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Tuesday, October 24th, 2023. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Also, be sure to check out the SiriusXM app. You can just search any team anywhere and listen to the home radio broadcast for that team on the SiriusXM app. Okay, well, we are back and hopefully better than ever. Hope everyone is having a fantastic Tuesday as you're listening to this. Had a good start to the week on Monday as well. We are going to get back into our deep dive series and avoid 45-minute long episodes. That's going to be what we're going to try to do going forward. Like I said, it was just this weird cutoff on the mailbag show of like, I have enough questions to do like 1 1/3 shows. So like I just said, you know what, let's just have a really long episode on Monday. So we'll get back on track and try our best to be around 30 minutes, but I'm not very good at that. Let's talk about Kerry Carpenter and Brendan White. We're going to start off with Carp. You know, it's so fascinating. Like he's so remarkable to me in so many ways. And I think the biggest one was just, it's important to start at the beginning. And Kerry Carpenter was not a highly regarded prospect at all. Not in the top 5, not in the top 10 in the organization. Nowhere to be seen on like prospects to be super excited about going forward. Okay, going into last season. Then he set the world on fire, and he had one of the highest home run totals in all of the minor leagues last year, flew through AA, flew through AAA, and next thing you know, by September of last year, he was in the majors, and he continued to hit well. And we're like, okay, this dude has to calm down at some point, right? Like, he's got to chill. At some point, you know, it's going to catch up to him. And we went through the whole offseason, and my mindset was very, I think I would call it cautiously optimistic goodness. But I think some other people that listen to this probably would have called it more pessimistic. But I wasn't not excited about him. I was very excited, and he gave us every reason to be excited in 2022. But he was really like just hitting fastballs from righties, and he was just crushing them. And like I was like, okay, well, major league pitching is going to adjust to him, and it's going to catch up to him, and hopefully he can make those adjustments, but that's certainly not a guarantee. We've seen very, you know, I was around for Chris Shelton in 2006. You know what I mean? Like I've seen, you know, crazy home run totals caught up by adjustments made by pitchers, and then that plateauing very quickly or falling off a cliff, even in that case, very quickly. So not that I ever thought Kerry Carpenter was going to be Chris Shelton. I always thought he was going to be better than that, but just, you know, like we've seen adjustments made on hitters before, and I didn't know how he was going to react to those, and he passed with flying colors. This was even a guy in spring training. It was not a guarantee that he was even going to be on the opening day roster. Do we remember that? Like, this is not just like, oh yeah, like Kerry Carpenter, he's always been here. Like, this dude was not guaranteed an opening day roster spot. I myself, like you all are very clearly my witnesses on, like, you know, my takes don't go away, baby. Like Kerry Carpenter was somebody that in spring training, I was like, yeah, like I like the power he gives, but somebody like Akil Baddoo in the outfield gives you a lot more tools and gives you a lot more just like versatility on what you can to do with him. Like Carpenter really only beats these guys that are also fighting for outfield jobs, not all of them, in like power, and that's kind of it. And like, boy, was I wrong. And I'm very, very happy to be wrong when it benefits the Detroit Tigers. And Carpenter had a phenomenal season. So I just think it's important to start at the beginning and talk about how we even got to this point, which is now everybody looking around going, I think Kerry Carpenter is probably like, a middle of the lineup, or at worst, maybe a like 5 or 6 hitter when this team's like really good again, right? And that's at worst. At best, he is a middle of the lineup bat. He had a phenomenal year. His final stats in 118 games were 20 home runs. We'll talk about that, obviously. 6 stolen bases, a 7% walk rate, a 25.1% K rate, a 194 isolated power, 278 average, 340 OBP, 471 slug. That's a 121 WRC plus, so 21% better than league average and weighted runs created. And his FWAR, his Fangraphs WAR, was 2.2, which is tied for the second most amongst non-pitchers on the Detroit Tigers. He's tied with Jake Rogers, who had 2.2 in 107 games, and Riley Green led the team with 2.3 in just 99 games. So we got a very good look at Kerry Carpenter this season. It was hurt for a little bit there in the middle of the summer, but I think, where do we even want to start? I guess we can start with the improvements he's continued to make, right? I said it last year, like, okay, like he's really just hitting fastballs against righties. Well, he adjusted and started hitting fastballs against righties and lefties. And then it was, okay, well, like that's cool too, but he needs to be able to hit off speed better. He adjusted, hit off speed better. He needs to be able to hit breaking balls better. He adjusted, hit breaking balls better. There is still a lot of room to grow. I hope that he is not a finished product, because we did see in the last 6 weeks pitchers start to make adjustments, and some of his numbers started not like plummeting or anything. He ended the season with an 811 OPS. That's very, very good. He was one of the best hitters on the Tigers all season, but he had trouble with power the last 6 weeks of the season. And also, by the end of the year, his righty-lefty numbers, he had a 286 average, a 341 OBP, and a 500 slug against righties. Okay, that's an 841 OPS. Phenomenal. Against lefties, a 235 average, a 333 OBP, a 324 slug. His slug was lower than his OBP against lefties on the year. That's a 657 OPS. He only had 2 extra base hits off of lefties all season. They were both homers, but he didn't have a single double, or I guess triple as well, off of a lefty all year. And 18 of his 20 homers came off righties, and all 17 of his doubles came off righties. So that is very much an adjustment that he has to make. And one of the biggest things you can point to, and this is kind of a natural transition into our conversation about what else he needs to keep improving on, is his numbers against specific pitches. Okay, we talked about the 4-seamer. He hits fastballs well now, and like he always has, but that has not gone anywhere, and he continues to do so. He had a 275 average and a 486 slug, a 500 expected slug against 4-seamers, a hard hit rate over 50%. He's good against fastballs. Okay, change-ups this year, huge step in the right direction. Again, a guy that I really only thought could hit fastballs in 2022 came out this year, had a 296 batting average and a 506 slug against changeups. Awesome. Curveballs, 318 average, 409 slug, a little low, but like 318 batting average, a 294 expected average. So he's getting a lot of good contact on the ball there. Sinker, variation of a fastball, has good numbers there. I don't think anyone should ever throw him a cutter ever again. I want you to listen to these stats. And this is not like, oh, he saw 4 cutters all year. He saw 125 cutters on the season. Okay. His stats against cutters: 561 batting average, 951 slug. That's like what? His WOBA is 645. His weighted on base percentage against the cutter is 645. It's like a 1,500 OPS if you were to like invent a stat on the spot. That's remarkable. So no one should throw him a cutter ever again. But like variations of fastball, good. Changeup, step in the right direction. Curveball, could have more power. His numbers against the slider: -6 run value, 151 average, 274 slug. Dreadful. Okay. We'll get into that right after I tell y'all about our friends over at FanDuel. It is the best time of year to get integrated and to join FanDuel because October baseball is back. The playoffs are must watch. I am recording this before Game 7 very strategically because I want to dedicate my entire evening on Monday night to watching Game 7 against the Rangers and the Astros. We got a great game against the Phillies as well. And you can make your postseason debut with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you join today, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You can just visit fanduel.com/lockedon to create your new account, and then you can get in on the action from first pitch until the final out. Bet on everything from strikeouts, home runs, who will win the game, you name it, you can bet on it. And if you don't want to wait till the end of the game to receive your winnings or cash in on your W, you can predict what will happen in the next at bat with quick bets. You see Yordan Alvarez stepping into the batter's box, you can go, all right, he's got that home run look in his eyes. Let's throw a bet on that. So head over to fanduel.com/lockedon right now. You can step up to the plate this postseason with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. I appreciate y'all for tuning in, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will be back tomorrow, recapping a couple more players, unless some news comes out of Tigers camp, of course. So talking about the slider. Now, the big thing with the slider for me to keep an eye on is the righty-lefty difference, right? Because sliders low and away from lefties were absolutely his kryptonite this season. Now, his numbers against sliders against righties weren't significantly better. It's not like he was hitting 600 when righties threw sliders and 50 when lefties were throwing sliders. But that is definitely a big thing to keep an eye on. Okay. In general, this is just going to be something that he has to adjust to. And when looking at breaking balls in general, okay, all breaking balls put together this season, he had now the page has to reload. Give me 5 seconds. It's just fascinating because that is what I think the reason for the slump, quote unquote, in the last 6 weeks of the season really was about. Right? This was a guy that finally pitchers started throwing him a lot more breaking balls. And, what do you know? His slugging numbers plummeted. He still had decent batting average numbers, but his slugging numbers went down. So against breaking balls this season, 206 average with a 221 expected average and a 328 slug. That is very, very low considering his fastball slug against is 590, which is unbelievable, and his off-speed slug against is 455. So that is going to be a very big adjustment that he has to make. Now, do I think he can make it? Absolutely. That's the thing about Kerry Carpenter is he has continuously, every time I have pointed out, or anybody has not he's cares what I think. Obviously he doesn't and probably shouldn't. But I'm just saying in general, all the holes you could poke in his game as he was coming up, he adjusted to and improved on. And I'm hoping and assuming that this will be another. But that is the biggest reason for me why the power numbers fell off. The ability to hit breaking balls far is not there yet. Put the bat on the ball? Sure. Right? His whiff rate isn't astronomical. I guess against off speed, it's kind of high, but against breaking balls, it's not super high. Right? Just got to be able to drive breaking balls more. You can't just only have power against fastballs and be a middle of the lineup hitter in Major League Baseball. You're going to have to be able to make those adjustments and whatnot. I also think that part of that is going to come with raising his walk rate. I think some of it is just deciding which pitches are pitches that he wants to swing at and not. But I will tell you, for the crowd, like myself, early in the season, we complained a lot about how Kerry Carpenter wasn't getting looks against lefties. And now we look at the numbers at the end of the season, and the numbers against lefties aren't good. I'm still glad we got to see him play against lefties more. One, that, 635 OPS against lefties was still better than what a lot of the players, especially in the first half of the season, were hitting in that spot. But I wanted to know, Like, we don't know what we don't know. I wanted him to have the opportunity. I wanted to be able to know, okay, this dude needs to improve against lefties. I'm really hoping that he does. Not that there's anything wrong with platoon players, okay? And AJ certainly has no issue with it. Scott Harris certainly has no issue with it, okay? But it does put a ceiling on a player's value. And I think for Kerry Carpenter to fully turn into that, like, oh, he's a part of the core just like Green and Torque, etc., like, Skubal, go down the list. That is something that he needs to be able to do. Obviously, the adjust and hit breaking balls more is just like a minute, not that it's small, but it is a very specific, I should say. That's a better word, like adjustment to make. But just being able to hit lefties in general is a huge part of the game where you will be able to, the other team will be able to take the bat out of one of your best power hitters' hands just by putting a lefty on the mound. And so that's an adjustment that is the biggest adjustment that he is going to have to make. Now, when talking about what he does outside of the batter's box, he's like 70th percentile sprint speed, not bad. 6 stolen bases this year, not terrible. He's like a slightly below league average runner. I have no issue with that at all. My bigger thing is the defense. And this has been another talking point for Kerry Carpenter since he got called up, right? Dating back to last season, beginning of this season, his defense, saying it wasn't good is probably putting it lightly. He really, really struggled defensively at the beginning of this season. And I think that as the year went along, he got better. One thing that I love is that he has the arm strength, 85th percentile in arm strength, plus arm value just in general in the field. Not that he's, like Vlad Sr. out there or anything, but, top 15% of the league, that's what you want out of the corner. You want someone who has an arm in the corner outfield, and he gives you that at a minimum. Accuracy, all that aside, he has a strong arm. That's an intangible thing that he provides to you. Okay, check. The range is really where the whole conversation kind of surrounds. He had a -3 OAA this season, which was in the 23rd percentile. Okay. I think that this got better. I'd have to go back and look at, if I could just pick a date and figure out what his OAA was on that date, I would. But I have to go back and look at like old episodes of this show and see if I mentioned it in like May. But like this is, at a minimum, I think he was like a net zero-ish defender the last couple of months of the season. From what I saw, I was more confident with him in the corners than I was in the first half of the year. Okay, so stats out the window. Again, hard to like track OAA across the full season with like checkpoints in there. But I got more confident in him as the year went along. If he can even be a -2 OAA type of fielder, right? -2. I'm not asking for even net zero defense here. I'm not asking for plus defense. A -2, and he can have an OPS in the 800s. Sign me up for Kerry Carpenter for at least the next 5 years until until he's a free agent, and then we'll reassess there, maybe even longer. Like I'm totally cool with him being a part of the long-term plans of this team if he can even be serviceable in the outfield. And serviceable to me is like I will take -2 defense. But I do think that it got better. I think he got more confident. I think he got more confident in Comerica as well. Part of it's just learning the dimensions of your outfield. I think he got better in that regard. I think one of the areas in which he struggles is like when he's on the warning track. I feel like sometimes maybe depth perception, like I don't know if he has 20/20 eyesight or whatever. I'm not trying to like judge the dude too specifically, but just like whenever he was running towards the wall or his back was against the wall, that and his feet was on the warning track on the dirt, it felt like a lot of the poor plays defensively that looked bad were in those types of situations. So that's something he could probably work on as well. But the reason why I have faith that he can at least be somewhat serviceable out there, even if it is slightly negative defense, he is an athlete. Like he's athletic enough to do this. It's just all ball judgment. Like that's literally all it is. And I think that with enough reps and with the coaching staff that we have in place, he should be able to at least be serviceable out there. That's all I'm asking for. Not asking for a gold glove. Okay. All right. I think that's enough about Kerry Carpenter. One of the biggest storylines of the year, massive accomplishment for him, for the development team, for his hitting coach, which is also Aaron Judge's hitting coach, that a lot of people love to bring up, which like rightfully so. Dude's clearly good at his job. Yeah. I'm very pleased with what Carpenter did this season. This is more than I would have pegged him for in 2023. And I'm hoping for him to exceed those expectations again next year. But some adjustments to be made for sure. Okay, let's talk about Brendan White. Low-key, one of my favorite players on the team. We will do that right after I tell you all about our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive, and all-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees, and you can buy tickets in a matter of seconds. Just 2 taps, and you're all set. Game Time's obsessed with finding ways to save you money. You can even get tickets past when the event has started. You can buy tickets to an event an hour after the event has started. That's a godsend for people like myself who just wake up some days and go, well, wasn't planning on it at all, but I want to go see the Tigers today. I want to go see the Wings today. I want to go see the Pistons Lions today. Game Time is the definition of clutch in that regard. You can buy tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater. If you need a ticket to get in, Game Time probably has it for you. They have zone deals as well. And the Game Time guarantee means you will always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB, all caps, all one word, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. I appreciate y'all for tuning in, making us your first listen every day. Shout out to y'all. I appreciate you all greatly. Let's talk about Brendan White, shall we? Brendan White this past season ended with a 1.35 whip and a 5.09 ERA. Let me get his WAR up here. Sorry, I have to switch back from pitcher to hitter, which I hate doing. 0.2 F4 on the season, 40.2 innings pitched, 9.74 K per 9, 3.32 walk per 9. What else? The expected numbers are way better than the ERA, which we'll get into in a second. The expected ERA 4.5. Goodness, I can't read today. I apologize. The FIP as well is, wow, I really just apparently can't read at all. There's his name, 3.85, and his xFIP 3.84 as well. So the expected numbers better than the overall ERA, which ended up being over 5. I tried to kind of like bark up that tree a little bit during the season, but you know, in the thick of it, as he was, especially that last little bit there before he was optioned, consistently giving up some hard contact. It was kind of hard. Hard hit rate, well below league average. So like something that he has to work on as well. But like, I want to start with him at the beginning as well, because this is another guy who was not on anyone's radar. And now even if you're, you know, like Brendan White isn't a major league reliever, if you're like in that camp, or if you're like the biggest homer ever and like really believe in him, no matter where you fall, objectively, his rise in 2023 to put himself in the conversation for 2024 is impressive. And so again, like this is a guy that was not on anybody's radar after the 2022 season. He had done some like high leverage relief work in the lower levels of the minors. And then in Erie, in Double-A last season, Erie had a really good year in 2022. He was, I want to say he was the closer for a little bit, but he was one of the higher leverage relievers on that team for sure. And at the end of the season, and we'll get into, it's almost this time of year again, we have some fascinating conversations to have. I cannot wait. When it's the time of year after the World Series where you have to protect players to put them on the 40-man to prevent them from being Rule 5 draft eligible, we were talking about who was going to make that case. And there was a couple fairly obvious ones. Parker Meadows was always a slam dunk. Wilmer Flores was a guy that like was always gonna be added. Like there was a few players like that we really expected to, and Parker Meadows clearly played Major League Baseball this year, so he was probably the headliner there. But then they added Lipsius, wasn't really expected. Winfield Perez wasn't really expected. And then Brendan White, who was not expected at all. Okay. And so we had him on the show as well, and he kind of talked about like getting added to the 40-man and what he did to improve his profile in the minors in 2022. And he talked a lot about his fastball and how the way that he throws his fastball, if he throws it high, he can get more swings and misses. That kind of reigned true at the major league level as well. A little bit of a dip, but that's to be expected with the jump from the minors to the majors. The biggest thing for me with Brendan White is just looking at his pitch mix. Okay. Four-seam fastball 32.8% of the time, slider 31.1% of the time, sweeper 28.2% of the time. So you have a little bit more of a loopier pitch in the sweeper and the slider, which is a little more direct, and you're trying to make look like a fastball. I'm not saying you have to get rid of one. That's not what I'm saying, but they better look a lot different than each other. I don't need just like a couple inches more of break on the sweeper than the slider. Okay, I want those to be three distinct pitches. And I think at times this year they weren't. So that's something, just like pitch shape in general is something I would love to see him improve on over the winter. But the biggest thing, and this is super like not complicated and not groundbreaking and not some like really like big brain or like super advanced analytics, like, oh, look what I found thing. It's rather simple. But he really, I think he takes off if he just simply locates the breaking pitches. Like, and again, that's not, rocket science, but like, look here, I'll show you. Okay. We'll do a screen share here if I can figure out how to do it in 5 seconds. Oh, I think I can. Wow. I'm a tech genius. So if you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing, so this is four-seam fastball. Okay. Let me zoom in a little bit for you. Wow. I am a tech pro. Four-seam fastball. This is the heat map for the four-seam fastball. You'd like it, outside of the middle of the plate here, which it kind of is. There's a little bit over the heart of the plate that we want to get rid of. But up and in to righties, we like. Down and into lefties, we like. Get some swings and misses. Fine with this. Okay, sure. Four-seam fastballs are going to be all over the zone. That's especially when it's your most thrown pitch. You're always going to have a lot of red in this. This is his slider. Okay, which he throws again 31.1% of the time. This red zone is, for those who are listening and not watching, there is a very dark red spot almost right down the middle, but knees high inside the strike zone. That should not be there. That it needs to move. And the fact that it was so many sliders that like there's a dark red spot there is not good. I want the dark red spot here to righties and to lefties probably down here. No matter who's up at the plate, righty, lefty, switch hitter, Ohtani, and you're a unicorn, I don't care. Like this can happen like this consistently. And it did. And that was something that not only, are we talking about it right now? This is something that we've been talking about since like August with Brendan White. He just leaves especially for how often he throws the slider and the sweeper. He leaves way too many of them over the heart of the plate. We move over to the sweeper. Okay. 28.2% of the time. This looks almost identical to, here's them side by side. He just threw less of them, but like this is almost identical. I want way more here. And like, I'm kind of fine with this if it's a lefty, right? I'm not upset at that. This is home run. This ball is getting smoked for 115 exit velo. This is just way too consistently is what I would argue his best pitch, right? Oh no, how do I get back? Boom, tech genius. I would argue his best pitch is that slider, not the sweeper, but the slider, just far too often was it middle, and or like knee high middle, and just absolutely drivable. Especially if for a 2-ish pitch pitcher, you can kind of sit dead red on that. I mean, just looking at each pitch individually and what hitters did against it, the four-seam fastball, 162 batting average, 189 slug, 44.2% K rate, 35.7% whiff rate. Absolutely chef's kiss, beautiful. Okay, fantastic year with the fastball. Slider, 240 average, 400 slug, 35.8 whiff rate. Not terrible, but not amazing, right? That's fine. That's a fine pitch, okay? The shape and the velocity of that pitch shouldn't be me coming on here and saying it's a fine pitch. That should be like, his slider is good. It is nasty. It moves 87 feet. There's no reason that pitch, the number against for those pitches should be even that high. And those aren't even egregious numbers. Okay. So command. The sweeper, 346 batting average against, 558 slug. That is obviously remarkably high. He gave up 4 home runs this season, 2 of them on the sweeper, 2 of them on the slider. He gave up 8 extra base hits this season, 5 of them on the sweeper, 2 on the slider, only 1 on the fastball. So you get what I'm saying? This is a guy who and look, like, it says he threw 6 split fingers this year, all to lefties. If you want to try to develop a pitch so that you can get more of that Michael Lorenzen strategy I always reference, where you don't want to throw your slider to lefties because, like, look at these numbers and whatnot. I mean, yeah, the slider, 286 batting average, 643 slug against lefties. So it's a good pitch against righties when he's locating it well. Hard to sneak in there against a lefty, especially when you're consistently putting it over the heart of the plate in the strike zone. And the sweeper, you don't even want to hear how the sweeper numbers against lefties. It's an OPS over 1,000. You don't even want to hear it. So it's either develop another pitch, whether it's that splitter that he threw literally 6 times, which is like not really a pitch that I count in your repertoire if you don't throw it that often, or a changeup or whatever. That's fine. I'm totally down for that. Get a better look against lefties. But the command needs to improve. And again, like, I don't want to make it just be like, oh, you have to get rid of the sweeper or something. But they need to look more different. And it really just keeps coming back down to command for me. As far as 2024 roles for both of these guys, Kerry Carpenter will be on the team. I do think he plays a lot more DH this year. And I kind of referenced that in the mailbag show yesterday. I think this team is chomping at the bit and drooling over the fact that they no longer have a set, like, this dude is the DH no matter what player, and they can play matchups a lot more and play defensive matchups as well a lot more, right? Look at outfield dimensions, figure out where they want to put certain players. So I think that's something that the team is really excited for and wants to do. So I expect him to get more reps at DH. And then as far as Brendan White goes, he certainly doesn't have a bullpen spot guaranteed, but I fully expect him to be on this 40-man in the spring and to compete and have us, when we start trimming down the roster and spring training get closer and closer to opening day, have it be like Brendan White versus so-and-so for that last bullpen spot. That's kind of what I expect his role to be. And hopefully he can make some adjustments there. Cool. Okay, thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. I appreciate y'all for tuning in, making us your first listen every day. Shout out to the everydayers that do. We'll be back tomorrow. Assuming no news comes out of Tigersville, then we'll be recapping 2 more players. Got some of the better dudes on the team left still intentionally. So we'll start trickling over into those. We have some utility players left as well. That's like 70% of the team. Hard to avoid. Yeah. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.